In this video, traders are going to look at 3 bullish signs in the cannabis sector. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so cannabis is going crazy at the moment. People are investing heavily. Valuations are sky high. Some people say they're too high. Some people say they're just getting started. But regardless of what we think, it's a super interesting sector to watch at the moment, whether you think it's a good investment or not, whether you've got a plan to get in on a dip, whether you plan to just get in now, whether you're already invested, whether you think it's a great short, whatever. If you just want to watch from the sidelines, it's super interesting because we don't very often get times when something new and huge like this comes into the market and potentially opens the floodgates for loads of companies to start to do business legally. So let's have a look. 3 bullish signs in the cannabis sector at the moment, or 3 of the biggest bullish signs in the cannabis sector at the moment. The first one is there's already a solid demand. You know, we know there are a huge number of people who consume cannabis on a regular basis. The only way that they can purchase cannabis at the moment in the majority of countries is via a black market. And we know that to be true. So whilst there's already demand, if cannabis is legalized, or when cannabis is legalized, depending on where you sit on this, the likelihood is that these people will then go down the legitimate channels where there's probably more choice, more protection, more security, lower cost, all that kind of stuff, rather than buying on the black market. There's already demand there. There's demand sitting there, they're consuming it regularly or not regularly, however it may be, but there's a consumption of cannabis going on at the moment. And this can just fit straight into that. There's no proof of concept. There's no MVP. There's no trying to kind of educate people on stuff. It's just like, hey, this is what it is. This is recreational only, by the way. This is what it is. This is where you can buy it. This is how much it is. All of a sudden, those drug dealers are out of business, or they're out of the cannabis business. They're probably into other stuff. But the people who are using cannabis now can go and purchase it legally. So the demand is already there. I haven't got to prove anything. That people know this already. So there's a big black market for recreational cannabis use. And there's also demand for medicinal cannabis. A lot of patients at the moment, specifically ones who have pain, that kind of stuff, are saying, hey, we see in this country or this and that, the other, and studies have shown that this lotion, this oil, this inhaler, whatever it may be, this cannabis oil, is helping patients with pain. We want it. And so there's already demand there. They want to try something. Some of these guys are at the end of their tether, you know, with the pain. Some of these guys would prefer this, you know, more natural approach, if you could kind of call cannabis that. And, you know, we're not talking about chemistry here or anything like that, but there's a lot of demand there already. From an investment perspective, there's a lot of demand in all sides of it. So it's just fulfilling that demand from a legal standpoint. So that's super bullish, right? If there's demand there for something, any businessman or woman is going to say, well, how can I fulfill that demand? Number 2, cannabis is legal in many countries. Well, okay, we know it's only legal in 2 countries, Canada and Uruguay at the moment, but it's decriminalised in a lot of countries. A lot of countries won't prosecute for small amounts. Places like the Netherlands will allow you to consume it in certain areas. There's lots of things where the trend is moving towards decriminalisation, legalisation, you know, and this is another trend, which is a kind of bullish signal in the industry, is that we're moving towards it as opposed to away from it. We're moving towards taking the reins off, letting people come in, letting capitalism take over, legalised capitalism take over, and get up and running like that. So, you know, it's really starting to get momentum, and the more people, especially in the US as well, you know, they start legalizing it, they start letting it become federally legal rather than individual states and all this kind of stuff, then the rest of the world will more likely start to follow. Of course, there are going to be some countries that will never do it, but if generally like G20 start to do it, you might see it really opening up, and that just opens up massive opportunity for companies. Third one is there's a massive rush to acquire investing companies. We have seen specifically Constellation invest $4 billion in canopy growth. I mean, these guys, Constellation isn't even you know, one of the biggest alcohol companies. We've got massive alcohol companies who are panicking about cannabis. They think that people are now going to be smoking cannabis or consuming cannabis, however the user consumes cannabis, chooses to consume cannabis instead of drinking. And they think that is going to hit the industry hard. Specifically, if it's legalized, specifically if there's a younger generation, perhaps, you know, perhaps older generation are kind of happy with their red wine and their whatever it may be, but a younger generation, maybe actually studies show that, you know, the alcohol consumption in the younger generation is declining rapidly. perhaps cannabis consumption is going to take over it. This is not a video about the pros and cons of cannabis and etc. This is just purely from an investment perspective. So the alcohol companies are getting worried. So what they're doing is they're piling money and they're buying up companies that have already got some traction, like Canopy Growth. They're investing in companies, they're investing in, you know, ideas and ways, so that on the assumption that it becomes legalized, oh, here comes a, you know, a drink that's infused with cannabis or whatever it may be. Same with tobacco companies. Tobacco smoking, tobacco consumption is on the decline, specifically in developed world. So what are these guys doing? They're thinking, well, you know, if we can kind of if we can put some sort of cannabis product together, whether that's a vaping solution, whether that is a tobacco infused cannabis, whatever it may be, you get the point. They are scrambling and they are thinking they've got lots of money to spend. How can we get a leg up on our competitors and to dive straight into this industry when it's a similar kind of industry? And you've got pharma, of course. I mean, we talked about pharma. Some of the pharmaceuticals could see the medicinal use for it and go, you know what? We're going to be consuming or using an awful lot of cannabis. It would be far easier for us to just purchase or invest in a growth company, become the sole supplier. We lock out some of the other competitors. We take all the cannabis from that. We use it in our medicines or whatever it may be. You can see all these big companies as jostling, and they could potentially just be getting started. You know, there's a bit of fear there as well. What a competitor's going to do, what we don't know what they're going to do. I'm sure there are big sections and departments within all these companies that are probably dedicated to just purely watching what's going on with this, seeing what legislation is going to do, speaking to kind of people in government, this, that and the other, just to see what's going on, so they're ready to move, because nobody knows where it's going to happen, where it's going to go, but they're going to be prepared. So, you know, whether you agree with these or not, these are general bullish arguments. A solid demand, legalization seems to be happening, or decriminalisation seems to be happening across the countries, and there seems to be a rush to acquire investing companies. If you've got any bullish signs or bullish arguments for cannabis sector, stick them in the comment section below. Similarly, if you've got bearish arguments for the cannabis sector, stick them in the comment section below. It's really interesting, super interesting from my perspective to see what you guys think about it. You know, I always learn new stuff, find out new stuff, and I'll share it with you, everybody, later on in the year. So make sure you're subscribed, because I'm going to kind of update this stuff with cannabis. It's just going to get more interesting as time goes on. Anyway, guys, take care. Whatever you're doing, keep your risk managed. Bye-bye.